associate elephants, rhinos, lions, and hyenas with the tropics, but until very recently, in geological terms, they lived in climates much colder than northwestern Europe is today. Until around 40,000 years ago, the straight-tusked elephant, Elephas antiquus, closely related to the Asian elephant, roamed across much of Europe. The woolly mammoth, which had an entirely different ecology, grazing on cold steppes rather than browsing like the straight-tusked elephant in temperate forests, lasted longer. One relic population, isolated from human hunters in the fastness of Wrangel Island off the north coast of Siberia, survived until the Bronze Age. Three species of rhinoceros, the woolly, the merks, and the narrow-nosed, lived in Europe at the same time as humans. Until roughly 40,000 years ago, Russia was haunted by two monstrous beasts, Elasmotherium sibiricum and Elasmotherium caucasicum. They were hump-backed rhinos the size of elephants, 8 feet to the crest, weighing perhaps 5 tons. Elephants roamed across Europe, Asia, Africa, and the Americas. Rhinos never populated the Americas, but they lived throughout the Old World. Across the past 50,000 years, the range and variety of these species have shrunk as humans have hunted them. They were exterminated first in Europe, then, in the case of elephants, in the Americas, then in the Middle East and North Africa, then in most of Asia, eventually in most of Africa. The animals conservationists are now desperately trying and often failing to save are the last tiny populations of creatures which once dominated most of the Earth's surface, so recently that we can almost stretch out our fingers and touch them. When Trafalgar Square was excavated in the 19th century, presumably to build Nelson's column, the river gravels the builders exposed were found to be crammed with hippopotamus bones. These beasts wallowed, a little over 100,000 years ago, where tourists and pigeons cluster today. The same excavations, and those conducted in the square in the 20th century, also revealed the bones of straight-tusked elephants, giant deer, giant aurochs, and lions. Lions raised their heads where the monument now stands long before Sir Edwin Landseer got to work. They were larger than those now living in Africa, but probably members of the same species. They hunted reindeer across the frozen wastes of Europe and survived in Britain until 11,000 years ago, the beginning of the Mesolithic when humans returned to the land after their long absence. Spotted hyenas, also still living in Africa, survived in Europe until roughly the same time. Their fossilized feces have been found in Trafalgar Square. Scimitar cats, Homotherian species, lion-sized with great curved fangs, preyed perhaps exclusively on young elephants and rhinos. These species, elephants and rhinos and the cats which ate them, are likely to have dominated the ecosystem during the previous interglacial period, which ended around 115,000 years ago, a blink of an eye in geological terms. The curious features that some of our plants possess may be ghostly adaptations to the way they fed. Elephants' habit of snapping or uprooting trees could explain why species such as oak, ash, beech, lime, sycamore, field maple, sweet chestnut, hazel, alder, and willow can regrow from the point at which the stem is broken. In eastern and southern Africa, there are dozens of tree species which resprout, or coppice, from the snapped trunk, and ecologists recognize this as an evolutionary response to attacks by elephants. By breaking African trees, such as malpani or knobthorn acacia, elephants improve their food supply as the shoots the damaged trees produce are easier to reach and more nutritious than older branches. Trees that can survive the attention of elephants often come to dominate the places in which the animals live. The ability to coppice confers powerful selective advantages. But somehow the obvious link between coppicing and elephants appears to have been missed by people studying European ecosystems. It is another example of shifting baseline syndrome. Ecologists are not always aware of the extent to which the systems they study have been altered by humans, that the life they describe has been greatly simplified and diminished. Elephants could also explain why understory trees in Europe, such as holly, yew, and box, are so resistant to breakage and have such strong roots, though they carry less weight than canopy trees and are subject to lower shear forces from the wind. They have to be tough, as they take much longer to become massive enough to withstand toppling or for their branches to grow out of the reach of trunks and tusks. The ability of some trees to survive the removal of much of their bark could be another adaptation. Elephants often strip bark with their tusks. Elephant proofing could account for the birch tree's pied coat.